All right, so get ready because today we are diving deep into one of the most talked about UFO incidents ever,
Oh, yeah.
the Travis Walton case. And
Yeah.
you've sent us a ton of material on this, articles and book excerpts and even some stuff about the film adaptation. So it's obvious that you are ready to just dissect this thing with us. And honestly, it has all the elements of a real head scratcher.
A sudden disappearance,
Yeah.
mysterious lights in the sky, and of course the alien abduction claims.
Yeah, and you know what makes this case so fascinating even decades later? Is that it's not just some vague story. It's grounded in very specific details. We're talking November 1975, a logging crew just finishing up their workday in the Apache Sitgreaves National Forest near Snowflake, Arizona. I
Yeah.
mean, imagine you're in a remote, heavily wooded area,
Yeah.
already feeling a bit isolated, and then boom, this intensely bright light appears in the sky.
I mean, I can only imagine seeing something like that after a long day of work. It would probably make anyone jump right. I mean, this is 1975. No smartphones to quickly capture the moment.
Mm.
So what did these guys do when faced with what could be a real-life UFO? Yeah, you're right. No instant Instagram stories back then. The crew's reaction was pure instinct. They were terrified. Most of them fled the scene, but Travis Walton, well, he either had a strong dose of curiosity or maybe a bit too much courage, because he decided to walk towards the light.
And that's where things take a really strange turn. One minute he's with his crew, the next he vanishes for 5 whole days. The other loggers report him missing. A massive search ensues. It's like a scene straight out of a suspense film.
Totally. And when Walton reappears, his explanation of those missing 5 days only adds to the puzzle. He claims he was taken aboard an alien spacecraft and subjected to medical examinations by extraterrestrial beings. Understandably, he was disoriented, his memories were fragmented, and his return sparked a wave of reactions. Some met him with awe and others with deep skepticism.
Oh, yeah, that's right. And Walton later wrote a book, The Walton Experience, which became a sort of Bible for many people who believe in alien abductions. But as you pointed out in your notes, the scientific community wasn't quite as convinced.
Absolutely. The reaction from scientists was largely dismissive. One prominent skeptic, Dr. Philip Klass, a well-known UFO investigator, argued that Walton's amnesia was much more likely a stress-induced fugue state, something that can happen in high-pressure situations rather than proof of an alien encounter. And this sparked a debate that raged on. Was Walton a genuine abductee, or was this all an elaborate hoax?
Yeah, and this is where things get interesting, right? Because it becomes less about what we can prove and more about what we choose to believe.
Mm-hmm.
We're wired to be fascinated by the unknown. And Walton's case plays right into that.
Exactly, but we also need to think about the human element here. Imagine being Travis Walton, thrust into the global spotlight, your story dissected by everyone from scientists to talk show hosts, some calling you a liar, others a hero. I mean, the scrutiny, it must have been overwhelming.
It's easy to forget that there's a real person at the center of these extraordinary events. But before we dive into the psychological impact, let's shift gears a bit and talk about how this story went from a local news item to a major motion picture.
Right. The story didn't stay confined to UFO circles for long. Hollywood took notice. And in 1993, the film Fire in the Sky hit the big screen. And this wasn't just a retelling of the events, it was a dramatic interpretation, complete with terrifying alien imagery and heightened emotional intensity. And this dramatically shifted public perception, exposing a much wider audience to the Walton case, and sparking renewed debate about the possibility of alien abduction.
Yeah, the film's release really amplified the already polarized reactions to Walton's story. You had to remember this was a time when UFO sightings were becoming increasingly common in pop culture, so people were kind of primed for a story like this.
Yeah, it's almost like Walton's experience became a focal point for all of the anxieties and fascinations surrounding the UFO phenomenon. You had skeptics, many from the scientific community, who were demanding concrete proof. They pointed to inconsistencies in the true statements, the lack of any physical evidence at the alleged abduction site, and even suggested that Walton might have fabricated the story for attention or maybe even money. Yeah, those are all valid points to consider. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, as they say. But then you have the other side, those who fully believed Walton's account. They saw him as a brave witness who risked ridicule and disbelief to share a truth that challenged conventional thinking. They focused on the emotional weight of his testimony, the fact that his story remained consistent over the years, and that he even passed polygraph tests, all of which to them pointed to his sincerity.
Right, it really became a battle between logic and intuition, didn't it? And that's what keeps his case so captivating. It forces us to confront our own biases and what we consider possible. And in your research, you included an article that analyzed the polygraph results, which is a key point of contention. What can we glean from that?
Oh, that's a great point. The polygraph tests, while not foolproof, did add another layer to this already complex story. The article you sent, written by Dr. Name Redacted, a specialist in forensic psychology, argued that while polygraphs can be influenced by a number of factors, Walton's results showed a high degree of consistency and pointed to a genuine belief in his own narrative. However, even Dr. Name Redacted acknowledged that this doesn't definitively prove his claims of alien abduction.
So we have this ongoing debate, a story that captured the public's imagination. And then Hollywood steps in and ramps up the drama. Did the media frenzy surrounding this case help or hurt Walton's credibility?
That's a tough one to answer. On one hand, the media attention brought Walton's story to a global audience, sparking countless conversations and putting alien abduction on the map, so to speak. But it also opened him up to intense scrutiny, making him a target for both fervent believers and harsh critics.
I can only imagine the pressure he was under. True or not, going through something like that and then having every detail of your life examined under a microscope, it has to have some kind of lasting impact.
Absolutely, and that's something we often overlook when discussing these kinds of events: the human cost. Regardless of your personal beliefs, there's no denying that Walton went through something traumatic, whether it was an encounter with extraterrestrials or some other unexplained phenomenon.
Right. And he didn't just shy away from it either. Even today, he continues to grapple with the legacy of that night in the Arizona woods.
You're right. Walton chose to embrace the experience, becoming a well-known figure in the UFO community. He wrote his book, participated in documentaries, and frequently speaks at conferences. For better or worse, he's become a symbol of the enduring mystery of UFO encounters.
So where does that leave us? We've got this captivating story, a public divided in their reactions,
Yeah.
and a film that further cemented the case in our collective consciousness.
Yeah.
What does it all mean? Is there any way to know for sure what happened to Travis Walton that night?
The truth, as is often the case with these types of events, remains elusive. We don't have that irrefutable piece of evidence, that undeniable proof that would definitively validate or debunk Walton's account. And I think that's what keeps people coming back to this case, decade after decade. It's that persistent ambiguity.
Like a puzzle with missing pieces.
Yeah.
And we're left to fill in those blanks with our own interpretations, our own belief systems.
Exactly. And I think that's part of the beauty of this story. It pushes us to think critically, weigh the available evidence, and be open to perspectives that may differ from our own.
It serves as a reminder that sometimes the most compelling mysteries are the ones that resist easy answers. But let's not forget that there's a human being at the center of this, a person whose life was indelibly marked by this event. So before we wrap up, I want to circle back to something you mentioned earlier, the human cost, and explore how Walton navigated the aftermath of his experience.
Yeah, it's easy to get caught up, in the debate over evidence and proof. But let's not forget that at the heart of this is a man who went through something extraordinary, whether it was an alien abduction or something else entirely. His life was irrevocably changed.
That's a really good point, and it's something that often gets overshadowed by all the sensationalism.
Hmm.
For Walton, this wasn't just a story that made headlines. It was a life-altering event that shaped his identity, his relationships, his entire worldview. I mean, imagine carrying the weight of such an encounter. Knowing that many people would doubt you or dismiss you or even ridicule you, that takes a toll. Oh, for sure. And yet he persisted. He wrote his book, he shared his story, and continues to engage with those curious about his experience.
Yeah.
There's a resilience there, a commitment to his truth that I find quite remarkable.
Yeah, it's almost as if by embracing his story, he reclaims a sense of agency. He refuses to let the doubts and skepticism define him. Instead, he chooses to focus on the connections he's made with others who've had similar experiences. The community he's found among those who believe, and the ongoing quest for understanding.
And that's something I think we can all appreciate, regardless of our stance on the existence of extraterrestrial life. The courage to stand by your convictions, even in the face of adversity, is something to be admired.
Yeah, and what's also interesting is how this case reflects our evolving relationship with the unknown. In 1975, the idea of alien abduction was still largely relegated to the fringes of science fiction. But as more and more people came forward with similar stories, the conversation began to shift. Walton's case, in a way, helped normalize the discussion, kind of paving the way for more open and nuanced exploration of these phenomena.
Yeah. It's almost as if he became like an accidental pioneer, pushing the boundaries of what we consider possible. And while the debate about the validity of his claims continues, his story has undoubtedly left an indelible mark on our collective consciousness.
And perhaps that's the most enduring legacy of the Travis Walton incident. It's a reminder that the universe is a vast and mysterious place, and that our understanding of it is constantly evolving. Whether we believe in aliens or not, we should approach these kinds of encounters with an open mind. a healthy dose of skepticism, and a willingness to consider perspectives that challenge our preconceived notions.
Well, this deep dive has been a whirlwind of intrigue, skepticism, and a healthy dose of cosmic wonder. We've explored the events, the reactions, and the cultural impact of the Travis Walton case. And now I'm going to leave you, our intrepid listener, with a final thought to ponder. Given the lack of definitive proof, what factors might lead someone to believe or disbelieve such a compelling account? How does this case challenge our understanding of what we consider possible? Perhaps the answers lie not in the stars, but within ourselves. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep seeking, keep questioning, and keep your eyes on the skies.